Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
So in this session, we are going to be talking about generative AI and ethics, with a focus on the conversations we aren't having yet. And I think you will have already seen, I'm sure, lots of discussions about AI. It's one of the fastest topics, certainly in business today.
Yeah.
But I think what I'd like to just focus on, when it comes to ethics and generative AI, are we talking about it as businesses, as society, enough?
So I'll say I support a lot of companies in their AI transformation, and my number one frustration is exactly that the ethics conversation, the level of awareness around it is mind-blowingly low. It's really super low. And when you think of an AI transformation, I don't know if you guys are in corporations, but you really need to think about the fact that a lot of the decisions that pertain to AI ethics will happen in a super decentralized way in your organization. I think if I give one example, very simple, is what is the gender of the voice of an AI assistant that is being developed? Does it have human representation or not? What is its name? Will it have a physical representation or not? All of these decisions, for example, have a lot of ethical implications, and mostly they are left to pretty junior team members that develop this somewhere in your corporation. You can see what happened to OpenAI recently with the very sexy female voice they use for their voice assistant and the backlash they faced because of that. So one push I would give any corporation is to elevate the strategic decision-making around AI ethics to the highest level, to the CTO, to the CMO, to the CEO. And maybe on a much more of a societal angle to this, imagine if tomorrow all of the AI assistants out there have female voices, which is already the case, by the way, Alexa, your GPS.
Yeah.
Like, if you think just about that, we're basically raising a generation of giving orders to super compliant females. That has a lot of societal implications, and that is something that only the regulator can actually take up and try to push us in the right direction.
So I guess where are you seeing, if companies aren't discussing this enough, are there pockets at all where this is being discussed? Or how would you encourage people, and how should businesses start to organize themselves to actually tackle this challenge?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you have the start of a push in the recent AI EU Act of asking for more transparency around the use of robots and AI assistants. It's a first push, but there is still a real gap of just awareness around that. And one of the reasons for that is there's a tension between doing what is right from an ethical standpoint and doing what is right for fast adoption. If you think of a user's adoption, it's much easier if something feels 100% human-like, 100% seamless. People would just flock to that. Every time you do an AI adoption test, you will see people prefer female voices, fully human-like experiences. But is that the right thing for society? Probably not. And I think, or I personally anticipate and hope, that a lot of that backlash will actually come from the consumers. Once AI applications reach day-to-day consumers, consumers will start to notice and will start to raise awareness to these issues.
What do you think some of the other micro-ethical factors are that we're not talking about that we should be?
Well, if you think of what essentially AI does, is it hard codes any bias we have in our data. If your data set is biased towards male, you will have that bias. If your data set is wired towards the north versus the south, it will be in your algo and in your analytics. It's true of ethnicities, it's true of socio-demographics, it's true of basically every possible bias out there. And I think one of the only ways of addressing that and just having awareness that your data set is biased intrinsically and then deciding what you do with that is having a very strong AI backbone or framework in the way you approach analytics, forcing, for example, systematic disaggregation of results by gender, by ethnic type, by socio-demographic type, so that at least if there's bias, you know what it is. By the way, I'm talking about ethics, but it's also true of business applications. Your data today tells you basically what your corporation already knows or what it's strong at. Will never tell you what you are weak at. If you have a company, a consumer company that is super strong with female, you will not find an AI trained on your data what will make you strong with male. That is just a bias of data. And so to tackle that, I think you really need the top management of the company to set lots of strategic clarity on how to test for bias, what is the strategic framework you want to operate, and then you need an operational conduit that actually helps the person who codes have some supervision, some best practices, and someone they can turn to so that they know how to make these decisions.
So, and I guess you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but what advice would you give to leaders who want to act responsibly, but also want to move fast? Because I think that's sometimes the challenge is, the care and thought that goes into this, but not slowing down the opportunities that companies have in AI.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of appointments you need. An AI ethics officer, somebody strong in the legal and compliance side that can actually expose you to the risk. And it's a great move to create an AI ethics board. Typically, you would have your CTO on that, your CMO on that, your CEO on that, your head of AI ethics. And that's where lots of the strategic framing around AI has to happen. And then have a compliance mechanism so that you can track what is actually happening out there.
And as a CMO, where I know this is obviously an area that you're really passionate about,
yes.
But do you think it's important for the CMOs to have a voice, a strong voice in this area?
Totally. As a CMO, you're the voice of the consumer, you're the voice of the customer, you're the voice of the brand. So if I take what I've done, for example, for BCG, I've set very strict branding guidelines that any AI assistant developed or used by BCG needs to have a robotic voice, not a human voice, needs to have a name that is descriptive, not a human name, forbidding full human representation, and ensuring mixed representation of female versus male. And that typically is 100% on the CMO. So if there are CMOs out there, I encourage you to be a voice in that conversation.
Amazing. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.